Good afternoon. My name is Beth Rininger. I am the fake office manager here at Washington Heritage Museums. It's a position that involves many different responsibilities, including thinking of new ways to generate interest and support for WHM and the important work we do here in Fredericksburg. I'm coming to you today with an exciting and new idea for an engaging educational community outreach project. It may seem ridiculous to some of you to be proposing a new project for WHM to undertake right now, especially since on January 19th of this year, we just added another historic downtown property to our expense sheet when Fredericksburg City Council conveyed the Mary Washington Monument and the Caretaker's Lodge and property to us. Now, a major concern the task force panel had before acquiring the property was our organization's ability to maintain the property within our present financial constraints. So a capital funding campaign is set to get underway here pretty soon to help fund some of the initial projects that are going to be focused on safety and beautification at the new site. So it may seem especially ridiculous then to some of you to be proposing that this new project for WHM be focused not around the new site, but around one of our more established museum interpretation programs and better preserved buildings, the Hugh Mercer Apothecary Shop. So just hang in there with me for a moment and don't get too skeptical. Because by increasing our outreach opportunities and diversifying the educational programming we provide, WHM will be better able to develop a larger community of shareholders and will create more public awareness and support for our mission. While the project being proposed will require us to shift our immediate focus from aesthetics and preservation to education, it will benefit the overall museum greatly in the longer term. Furthermore, the project proposed here has minimal startup and continuation costs and may even lead to more opportunities for increasing revenue for the museum through donations, grants, and service fees in the future. It will not jeopardize the safety of the sites or the collections, and it will increase public engagement and awareness of our mission, WHM's educational programming, and the history of Fredericksburg most of all. All of these aspects make up the components of WHM's mission, quote, to preserve, promote, and maintain its 4, now 5, 18th century properties in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and develop dynamic educational resources and programs to engage and inspire the interest of everyone. As residents of Fredericksburg know, the Hugh Mercer Apothecary Shop is the rather conspicuous 18th century house sitting in the middle of the rapidly modernizing downtown district. Currently, WHM meets part of its mission largely by asking its visitors to come to it. The traveling museum experience being proposed for development here will be a chance to take WHM and the Hugh Mercer Apothecary Shop out to the community. According to the American Alliance of Museums, the AAM's National Standards and Best Practices, quote, the museum strives to be inclusive and offers opportunities for diverse participation. Furthermore, the museum demonstrates a commitment to providing the public with physical and intellectual access to the museum and its resources. These standards for museum excellence are especially important in an area with many historic homes and buildings that contain museums inside that are inaccessible to segments of the population, whether it's people who have physical disabilities that impede their mobility or those who perhaps work during WHM's normal operating hours. In the 21st century, the greatest challenge facing museums is to recognize that museums are for people and that their future success depends on identifying and meeting the needs of people. By generating audience engagement with a broader section of the population, WHM will be able to increase awareness for the important work we are doing in preserving Fredericksburg's history, as well as highlighting the other opportunities for learning WHM provides, all while growing more support for the museum and its future projects. The emphasis in recent museum scholarship has moved from education, which implies museums teaching or imparting things to its users, to learning, which instead implies individuals actively using the museum and its resources for their benefit. This means it is even more important for the museum to consider the specific audiences for these traveling events, to address the variety of ways in which people learn, and to look for diverse and unique ways to spark their curiosity, which is just what this experience sets out to do. Through a short program, a demonstration and a presentation, 2D and 3D visual objects, and hands-on activity, this traveling program will allow adult guests to actively examine the role of an 18th century apothecary in acquiring the materials colonial artists and craftsmen needed for making pigments and paint. They will realize the complexity and danger of some of the processes that were involved. They will see some of the raw minerals and materials and appreciate the truly global flow of trade into Fredericksburg in the 18th century. They can experience grinding minerals for pigments themselves and be surprised to consider all the uses pigments and paint had in colonial America, such as portraiture and paintings, of course, but also furniture, interior and exterior decoration, carriages, pottery glazes, and even makeup. The theme being considered for development for this traveling exhibit/experience is connected to art and painting in order to specifically tie into the setting and the event where this museum program will initially be implemented. But future traveling experiences could be developed based on community interest or need. For example, this traveling experience could be tailored to be taken to schools or community centers and different STEAM themed, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. History-based programs could be developed to coordinate with topics being covered in classrooms or through homeschooling groups. It's important to remember that K to 12 schools, and public schools in particular, are also facing economic pressures similar to the way we are. It is much more economically feasible for a school to pay a fee for a guest speaker and a traveling museum experience that comes to them than load up buses full of grade levels of students, pay admission fees, arrange for chaperones and bus drivers, pay for gas, arrange for snacks and meals, arrange for student medication to be on site, etc., etc. So this traveling museum experience can be an attractively economical yet educationally rich option for a lot of schools and school groups in the area. There would also be options for reaching out to adult audiences through local senior centers, history clubs, libraries, and other big community events like the fair or Riverfest. These types of services could be offered by the museum for a reasonable service fee or by donation, with the funds collected then being used for other expenses like the preservation programs at the other sites. This is also a very unique opportunity for WHM to publicly show how the money they are given by the community is being used directly for the restoration projects the public will see taking place at the new Washington Avenue site over the coming months and years. So the traveling museum experience is an important opportunity for the museum to create some financial transparency and to affirm the public's trust in the work we are doing in preserving these important and unique historic properties and the stories they hold. But by also placing public service and education at the center of our mission, WHM is acknowledging and owning the responsibility we have to our shareholders and the public. A traveling museum experience will enable WHM to realize this very important component of our mission more fully, to, quote, develop programs to engage and inspire the interest of everyone. The everyone in this initial project proposal are the attendees of the monthly FXBG First Friday community event in downtown Fredericksburg. FXBG First Friday is an event that happens on the first Friday evening of every month in downtown Fredericksburg from 5 to 8:30 p.m. It's billed by the Fredericksburg Tourism Office as, quote, a collaboration between art galleries, retailers, restaurants, and nonprofits in the downtown district, end quote. It was established as a way to showcase the new art gallery shows opening that month and all the services that the downtown businesses have to offer. The gallery is open for free. Restaurants have drink specials. People are allowed to carry alcohol in the streets as they stroll between shows. It has proven to be very well attended by a very diverse cross-section of the Fredericksburg community, mostly students from the University of Mary Washington, tourists, and lots of locals. However, FXBG is missing something: nonprofit participants. In fact, the Main Street Association, who organizes these events, is currently accepting applications for nonprofits who wish to participate in future FXBG First Fridays. Even though WHM participation in the event would be optimal for the organizers as well as the museum, the MSA are very specific on their website in stating that the applying nonprofit organization is responsible for all the costs of materials and supplies. While the MSA may not have the resources to share for supplies, the Fredericksburg Tourism Bureau, the Fredericksburg Economic Authority, the Virginia Tourism Board, and the State Museum Association would all be options for WHM to approach about grant opportunities for funding the initial startup costs, the implementation and maintenance expenses, as well as the costs for evaluating the finalized traveling museum experience, once the board approves its development, that is. An important benefit for us coordinating with First Friday events is that while the MSA may not pay for materials and supplies, they do provide advertising for the events, including lists of all the vendors and participants. So the local and social media resources used by WHM to promote events would also be bolstered by the marketing and advertising of MSA. This will help generate interest and ensure a great turnout, increasing exposure to the museum's programming and its mission, which is always one of our big goals. Our marketing plan for First Friday events could include conducting the traveling exhibit/experience programming in place of the regular tour programming during the day of a First Friday evening to generate awareness and interest in visitors to Fredericksburg in the event happening that evening. It could include sending social media posts that are reminders for upcoming First Friday events that build up to the monthly announcement of where the traveling experience will be that month, which could change to bring attention to different participating businesses and public spaces in the downtown area. It could also involve posting pictures from the previous evening's event on social media with room for the public's comments. Additionally, the website could include photos of past First Friday events and places for participants' comments. It's important to remember that, quote, good word of mouth publicity from satisfied users, for example, on websites and social media, is ultimately the most powerful means of developing continuing support of the museum. Additionally, guest evaluation surveys and analysis could be carried out collaboratively with the MSA, the Tourism Office, the Fredericksburg Economic Authority, or another participating organization. Seeking visitor input is important. It will not only help WHM understand the motivations of our users more accurately in order to change or to develop services to meet their needs, but many museum users today are increasingly expecting more involvement and more active participatory experiences in their interactions with museums. A third benefit for coordinating this initial traveling museum experience with FXBG First Fridays is that travel and setup for the events would be within walking distance of the museum, which will defray travel expenses and will lead to more of a net gain of the donations it receives for the museum. However, because this traveling museum experience will be the face of WHM, it should be initially run by professional paid staff with the goals of ironing out any kinks and training volunteers to eventually take over setting up, running, and tearing down the display and experience on FXBG First Friday evenings. Our interpreters currently make Virginia state minimum wage of $12 an hour. This chart breaks down the estimated expenditures and positions responsible for this proposed project based on the positions and organizational structure of WHM. Now, since this is a traveling exhibit and the spaces in which it will be set up and used will change each time, it's important for the overall footprint of the display to be compact, flexible yet sturdy, and easily portable for 1 or 2 people. So the initial physical display will consist of 2 6-foot folding tables with covers. One table will be used for displaying items and one will be used for hands-on activities. One vertical graphics banner and one tabletop display. 2 foam-filled travel cases on wheels. Samples of unground materials and minerals in clear plastic containers with lids. 1 large mortar and pestle for people to try and use. Pre-made hand-ground paints, 18th century artist tools, including a colonial color box or a facsimile, and a double-sided full-color brochure that gives details about WHM and the apothecary shop, and also a QR code for donations and guest feedback. Evaluating the impact of this traveling museum experience will help WHM learn lessons about its processes and will help inform future management decisions. Some of the expected outcomes in the establishment of this traveling program will be an increase in public donations to WHM and an increase in public awareness for the work WHM does in preserving the history of Fredericksburg. Therefore, in addition to guest surveys and social media comments and ratings, performance measures for this project should include comparing museum visitation and donation rates before and after the traveling program is implemented. Some of the world's most respected leaders in museum management have said that, quote, evidence-based arguments to demonstrate how investment in WHM provides benefits for the donors and their community are powerful ways for locking in and retaining support, end quote. In other words, support can generate support. The smaller ripples created in the community through a traveling exhibit/museum experience will lead to a larger groundswell of support in the future, creating momentum for other fundraising efforts on which WHM vitally relies. Strong community support begins with growing the public's awareness for what WHM does in Fredericksburg, and this can start with a traveling museum experience that gives community members the opportunity to encounter an aspect of Fredericksburg's history that they can directly relate to in their own modern lives in Fredericksburg. By approving the initial $2,585 and 130-hour budget for developing and implementing a traveling museum experience in coordination with FXBG First Fridays, WHM will be increasing our public outreach opportunities and diversifying our educational programming and making it available to a wider section of the public. By approving the funding for a traveling exhibit, Washington Heritage Museum's Board of Directors will be further protecting the museum financially by creating a new way for developing public outreach, engagement, and fundraising opportunities, while also empowering the museum to operate at its maximum level of excellence in execution of its mission, quote, to preserve, promote, and maintain its now 5 18th century properties in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and develop dynamic educational resources and programs to engage and inspire the interest of everyone. Thank you for your time today, ladies and gentlemen. I look forward to hearing your decision. Thank you.